For years, my daughter-in-law secretly took my entire pension, until one letter from the bank exposed everything. I didn't even open the letter at first. It had been sitting in a small stack of mail on the kitchen table for 2 days. It came in a plain white envelope, addressed to me directly, no markings suggesting urgency or importance. I probably would have tossed it like I do with the endless flyers and catalogs if it hadn't been for the unfamiliar sender name. AmTrust Holdings Pension Distributions. At 68 years old, I'm not as sharp as I used to be, but I'm not completely gone either. Something about that envelope didn't sit right. So, I opened it. And everything I thought I knew about the last 3 years of my life started to collapse. Hold on a moment before we move forward. Let us know where in the world you're watching from. And if you're loving these stories, don't forget to hit subscribe. Tomorrow's episode is going to be absolutely mind-blowing. The letter was simple. It said my pension fund had been fully depleted. Final balance, 0.00. I read it twice, then again. I remember gripping the edge of the kitchen counter, trying to make sense of it. There had to be a mistake. I had nearly $187,000 in that account when I retired. I didn't touch most of it. I lived modestly. Groceries, my prescription meds, utilities. I never traveled. I didn't buy anything new. So where had it gone? The first thing I thought was fraud. Some hacker, some scammer. That's what I told myself to keep from shaking. I picked up the phone and called the number on the back of the letter. I had to hold for almost 40 minutes. When someone finally picked up, I gave my name, my date of birth, and they asked me to verify the last 4 digits of my bank account. And that's when it hit me. The woman on the line said, "The distributions have been going to a joint account ending in 2335. I froze. That wasn't my account. I only had one account. Always have. And the last 4 digits weren't 2335. I asked her to repeat it. She did. Then I asked when the changes were made. April 5th, 2022, she said calmly. I felt the air leave my chest. That was the month Julia offered to help me organize my online finances. She'd sat with me at the dining table, typing quickly into her laptop, smiling sweetly while I tried to remember my passwords. "Don't worry, Mom," she had said. "It's just easier if I help you keep track of everything. You won't have to deal with these confusing websites." She was calm. She always was. That was what made me trust her. After the call ended, I stood in my kitchen in complete silence. My mind was racing, but my body couldn't move. I think I stood there for 10 full minutes before I finally sat down. I opened my drawer and pulled out the checkbook. I hadn't written a check in months. Everything was automatic. Julia had set it up that way. "Easier," she said. I took out every document I could find. My bank statements, my pension paperwork, my old passwords written on a little notepad. I didn't know what I was looking for exactly, but I kept flipping pages until I found something that made my stomach drop. A printed transaction log with the note, "Transfer to joint account, monthly pension deposit." Each entry matched the exact day of the month I used to receive my pension, $2,480. Every single month, for nearly 2 years. I remembered asking Julia once if the pension amount had changed, because I hadn't noticed the deposit in my account like I used to. She laughed, patted my shoulder, and said, "It all goes to the same place now. Don't worry. I'm keeping track. You're fine." I didn't ask again. I think that's the part that hurts the most. I didn't ask again. When my husband Henry passed away, Julia and Mark were the ones who stepped up. Or at least that's how it looked. Mark came around more. Julia started cooking dinners for me once or twice a week. They offered to handle the online stuff I struggled with. And when they suggested I switch everything to a family-managed system, I didn't question it. They said it would make life easier. But it wasn't life they were making easier. It was theft. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at the kitchen table until 2 a.m. staring at those papers. At some point, I got up and made coffee even though my hands were shaking. I kept trying to piece it together. what else they had access to. My utilities were still paid. My phone still worked. "We've got it covered. You were using my own money." Their lawyer cleared his throat again. "If I may, perhaps we can be constructive. Are you open to a payment plan?" Myers leaned back in his chair. "Here's our offer. Full repayment. Of the $78,140, 50% must be paid within 30 days, the remainder within 6 months. If either payment is missed, we proceed directly to court with the full complaint, including a request for punitive damages." Mark's face went ghost white. We can't do that." "Then we'll see you in court," Myers replied calmly, already gathering his papers. Julia slammed her hands on the table. Wait, fine, we'll do it." Mark turned to her, furious. "Are you insane? Where the hell are we getting that money?" Julia glared at him. "Figure it out." Their lawyer held up his hands. "All right, we accept the terms." Myers looked at me. "Confirm, Mrs. Dalton?" I nodded once. "Confirm." The paperwork was drafted right there. The payment schedule was written into the settlement agreement. The penalties for missed payments were clearly stated. They signed it. I signed it. Myers signed it. It was real. It was final. As we stood up to leave, Mark finally looked me in the eyes. His voice was hollow. "You've destroyed this family." I didn't flinch. "No, Mark, you did," Julia scoffed. "You're dead to us." I stared right at her. Good. When I walked out of that office, I felt lighter than I had in years. 3 weeks later, the first payment hit my account. A wire transfer for exactly $39,321. Myers called me to confirm receipt. "Congratulations," he said. "Halfway there." I spent the rest of that day closing every financial loophole they'd ever created, changed every password, shut down every old account, opened entirely new ones. I hired an accountant, a professional, not family, to manage my taxes moving forward. And then I started thinking about what I wanted to do with my life. Really do. Not what Mark and Julia let me do. Not what I settled for because I thought I had to be quiet and grateful and compliant. But what I wanted, I refinanced part of the house. Not because I needed money, but because it was mine, and I wanted to update it. I hired contractors to repaint the interior, redid the kitchen, fixed the roof. I signed up for a local gardening club, something I'd always wanted to do but never felt I had the time for. I joined a book club. I even started planning a trip, the first real vacation I would take in more than 20 years. For the first time in my adult life, my money was my own. 2 months after the final payment came in, I received one last email from Mark. "I hope you're happy. You've destroyed everything. We won't forgive you." I read it, deleted it, blocked the number, blocked the email. I stood in the kitchen of my newly remodeled home, the home I owned free and clear, the home they thought they could use as leverage, and looked around. The silence was peaceful. The freedom? Worth every fight, and not a single part of me regretted it. Think again. This will not end the way you think. No name, no signature. But I knew exactly who wrote it. I sat down at my table, picked up my phone, and forwarded a photo of the letter to Mr. Myers. His reply came back within 5 minutes. "This is intimidation. Keep it. Save every message, every voicemail, every note. This only strengthens your case." I put the letter in the same folder with everything else, and for the first time in weeks, maybe months, I actually slept through the night. The following morning, I woke up earlier than usual. For the first time in weeks, there wasn't that same tightness in my chest. No more second-guessing. No more sitting at the kitchen table wondering how it had come to this. I knew exactly how it happened, and now, finally, I was doing something about it. By 9 a.m., I received an email from Mr. Myers. The subject line read, "Response received. Dalton case." I opened it instantly. Inside was a scanned copy of a letter from Julia's personal email address forwarded by their lawyer. That's right. They hired a lawyer. Probably realized real fast that this wasn't just going to disappear. The letter was short, defensive, full of legal-sounding nonsense. They didn't admit guilt, but they didn't deny the facts either. Instead, they claimed that the financial arrangements had been mutually agreed upon within the family unit, and that any misunderstanding was purely due to a breakdown in communication between parties. Mr. Myers' message below the scanned letter was blunt. Standard tactic. They're trying to position this as a family dispute rather than fraud. But they've offered a settlement meeting. Up to you. I sat back. A settlement. Part of me wanted to reject it outright. Let it go to court. Let everything come out. Every stolen dollar, every forged signature, every nasty message they sent. But another part of me wanted this over. I replied, I'll attend the meeting, but I'm not backing down. The meeting was scheduled for 2 days later at Mr. Myers' office. Private, no court yet. Just both sides, their lawyers, and the paperwork spread out on the table. When I arrived, Mark and Julia were already there, sitting stiffly on the other side of the conference table. Neither of them looked at me when I walked in. Julia was scrolling, her phone. Mark kept tapping his fingers on the table, jaw clenched, pretending to read some document their lawyer placed in front of him. Mr. Myers sat beside me. Calm, completely unfazed. Let's begin, their lawyer said, clearing his throat. It's the intention of my clients to resolve this matter without litigation. We believe this situation is the result of a misunderstanding, not malice. I nearly laughed out loud. Mr. Myers didn't blink. We disagree, he said flatly. There was no misunderstanding. There was unauthorized access, forgery, theft, and financial exploitation. Their lawyer shifted uncomfortably. Let's not escalate the language unnecessarily. Myers leaned forward slightly. Let me be clear. The evidence is overwhelming. My client has every document necessary to prove what was done. Bank statements, falsified signatures, rerouted government benefits. If this proceeds to court, not only will damages be awarded, but we will also be recommending criminal charges to the district attorney's office. Silence filled the room. Julia finally looked up. Her face was pale. She glanced at Mark, who was now fidgeting like a schoolboy caught cheating on a test. Their lawyer sighed. My clients are prepared to offer $30,000 as a full settlement. To resolve this matter? I raised an eyebrow. Myers didn't even bother looking at me before responding. Absolutely not. Their lawyer blinked. Excuse me? You stole over $78,000, Myers said. Our demand was clear. Full repayment of every cent, plus legal fees incurred so far. Julia snapped. We don't have that kind of money. Myers turned his head slowly. Then you shouldn't have spent it. Mark finally spoke. This is going to ruin us completely. I didn't look away. You should have thought about that before you stole from me. Julia gritted her teeth. You don't need it. You're living in that house for free. You don't work. You don't have expenses. I cut her off. That house? Paid off by me and your father. Every grocery bill? Paid by me until you rerouted everything. Every repair, every tax bill, every time. You two told me, don't worry, Mom. We'll file a civil claim against both of them, Mark and Julia. Depending on the total amount, and frankly, we're looking at a serious number here, they could be forced to repay through wage garnishment, liens against property, or asset seizure. My stomach twisted. Will it go to court? It might, he said honestly, if they refuse to settle. But cases like this often settle because the evidence is overwhelming, and once we notify them officially, they'll realize they don't have much choice. I nodded, absorbing every word. Also, he continued, based on the amount of money involved, the forgery, and the fact that they rerouted government benefits, we're obligated to file a report with Adult Protective Services. Depending on their findings, the district attorney could open a criminal case. I sat back. My heart pounded. I didn't want to put my son in jail. He nodded, understanding. Most clients say the same, but Mrs. Dalton, this isn't some misunderstanding. This is theft, and a serious one. Whether or not the DA pursues criminal charges is up to them. Our focus here is the civil side, getting your money back and protecting you moving forward. I swallowed. Okay. We'll start by sending them a formal demand letter, he explained. It lays out the situation clearly. The fraudulent activity, the financial damages, and the demand for full repayment. It also notifies them that if they fail to comply, we will proceed with a civil lawsuit. I nodded. Do it. He gave me a firm smile. Good. I'll draft it today. We can have it delivered by courier directly to their home. You should expect a reaction. I almost laughed. I'm used to that. We finished the paperwork. I signed the retainer agreement, provided copies of all the documents, and agreed to let his office handle everything from this point forward. By noon, I was back home. At 3:17 p.m., my phone buzzed. It was an email notification from the law firm. Subject: Demand letter sent. Dalton Casse opened the attached PDF. It was real. It was official. There, in bold lettering, it laid out the accusations against Mark Dalton and Julia Dalton. Forgery, financial exploitation, unauthorized account access. Demand for full repayment of $78,642 within 10 business days or face civil litigation. I sat back and stared at it for a while. My hands were shaking again. But this time, it wasn't fear. It was something else. Something heavier. Something final. At 4:05 p.m. The phone rang. I didn't even have to look at the caller ID. I already knew. I let it ring twice. Then I answered. Mark's voice was loud, angry, panicked. What the hell is this, Mom? I think the letter explained it, I said calmly. Are you serious? You're threatening to sue us? Over a misunderstanding? It's not a misunderstanding. Mark, I said, holding my tone. It's theft. You're gonna ruin this family over money? Money that you stole from me, I replied. In the background, I could hear Julia shouting something, but her words were muffled. This is insane, Mom. You don't know what you're doing. You're not thinking straight. I've never thought clearer in my life. You're really gonna do this? He snapped. You're gonna humiliate your own family like this? I felt my throat tighten, but my voice stayed steady. You did that the moment you decided my money was yours. He went silent for a few seconds. Then, quietly, he said, We can figure something out. No lawyers. No court. It's too late for that, Mark. Mom, please don't do this. I closed my eyes. You should have thought about that before you took everything. I hung up. Not even 5 minutes later, my phone exploded with texts. From Mark, from Julia, from unknown numbers. Probably their friends. Most of them were angry. Some tried to guilt me. You're gonna die alone if you keep this up. After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us? Family doesn't take family to court. But there were no apologies. Not once did either of them say, I'm sorry. At 6:30 p.m., my doorbell rang. I didn't answer. I peeked through the blinds. Their car sat in my driveway, engine running. They rang the bell 4 times, then banged on the door twice, then left. When they pulled away, I noticed something. A letter was taped to my front door. I waited until they were gone to open it. It wasn't handwritten. It was typed. If you think you can destroy us? I said nothing. More banging, more shouting. Then Julia yelled, If you think you can just cut us off, you're wrong. You're gonna regret this. Mark tried to pull her back. Julia, stop. No, she's not gonna pull this, she snapped. I stood silently. My heart was pounding, but not with fear. Not anymore. After a few more minutes, Mark finally got Julia back into the car. They peeled out of the driveway, tires screeching. I locked the deadbolt, double-checked the windows, then sat back down at the table. I had work to do. I opened my laptop and logged into my Social Security account. Sure enough, the direct deposit information had been changed last year. It was set to the same joint account. I clicked Update Direct Deposit and switched it back to my personal checking. I opened my utilities accounts. Same thing. All routed through their email. I changed the login, reset passwords, took back control. It was tedious. It was exhausting, but every click was a step away from them. Every password reset was a step back to freedom. By the time I finished, it was dark outside. My house was quiet, but it didn't feel like loneliness anymore. It felt like reclaiming something I should have never lost. Tomorrow I would meet the lawyer, and tomorrow I would find out exactly what came next. The next morning, I was sitting in the waiting room at Sanders and Myers Law before the clock even hit 9:50. My consultation was scheduled for 10 a.m., but I got there early, papers in hand, anxiety twisting in my stomach. The receptionist was polite, offered me water, and told me that Mr. Myers would be with me shortly. I sat down in one of those stiff office chairs, holding my folder tight against my chest. Every time the door to the inner office opened, my heart jumped. My hands were clammy. My mouth was dry. At exactly 10:01, the door opened, and a man in his mid-50s with graying hair stepped out. "Mrs. Dalton?" he asked with a warm but professional tone. "Yes, that's me. Come on back," he said, holding the door open. His office was neat, simple wood furniture, a wall of law books, and certificates hanging behind his desk. No clutter. No distractions. "Please have a seat," he offered, motioning to the chair across from his desk. I sat down, gripping the folder so tight my fingers hurt. "So," he started, flipping open a notepad, "why don't you tell me what's going on?" I took a deep breath. My son and my daughter-in-law have been stealing from me for nearly 2 years. They drained my pension, my savings, and even rerouted my Social Security payments without my consent. He raised his eyebrows but didn't look surprised. "Unfortunately, that's more common than people realize." I nodded. "I went to the bank yesterday. They confirmed a joint account was opened under my name. The signature isn't mine. Do you have documentation?" I pushed the folder toward him. "Everything. Bank statements, copies of the forged signature, printouts from my Social Security account, transaction histories." He opened it, leafing through the papers silently. He paused at the signature page. "Yeah. This isn't even close to matching." He flipped more pages, his brow furrowed deeper. "They transferred your pension, monthly, straight into this joint account?" I nodded. "Every penny." "And these credit card statements? Opened in your name too?" "Yes. I didn't even know the card existed until I pulled my reports." He kept flipping, scanning line by line, occasionally jotting something down on his notepad. After about 10 minutes of reviewing everything, he set the papers aside and looked at me directly. "Mrs. Dalton," he said, his tone shifting from neutral to firm. "This is textbook financial exploitation, elder financial abuse, plain and simple. And the paper trail here is solid. Can I get my money back?" I asked, trying to hold my voice steady. He nodded slowly. "There are steps we can take. First, you've already started the right process with the bank. They'll conduct their investigation. If they determine the signatures were forged, they'll close the fraudulent account. That doesn't guarantee recovery of all funds, but it does lock them out going forward. I already updated my Social Security, utilities, and everything. Else?" I added. "Excellent. That's exactly what you needed to do," he said, writing another note. "What about the money they already spent?" That's what I thought. We compared it to the signature card from when you and Mr. Dalton opened your original accounts in 1985. The differences are obvious. I swallowed. "So what happens now?" "We'll have you fill out this affidavit, stating that the signature was forged and that the account was opened without your consent. From there, our fraud team conducts a full investigation. If the claim is verified, and frankly, it looks very likely, we'll close the joint account and attempt to recover the funds." "Attempt to?" I asked, narrowing my eyes. Stephanie sighed. "If the money is still in the account, we can freeze it and return it to you. If it's been spent, it becomes more complicated. We can pursue legal avenues, and depending on the amount, law enforcement may get involved." "It's been spent," I said flatly. "I already saw the statements," she nodded. I figured. I filled out the affidavit, page after page, asking me to confirm that I had not authorized the account, that the signature wasn't mine, that the transfers weren't approved. I signed each one, my hand firm. My stomach twisted with every line I read, but I kept going. When I finished, Stephanie looked at me. Mrs. Dalton, I need to be honest. This is going to cause some friction in your family. I nodded. It already has. I've seen this before, she continued. Usually when family's involved, the victims end up dropping the case halfway through because they don't want to make it worse. I stared her straight in the eyes. Not this time. She gave me a small, approving nod. Good. Before I left, I asked her to print the full history of every transaction connected to my accounts for the past 3 years. I wanted everything. Every penny, every transfer, every withdrawal. She handed me a thick stack of papers. If you need any help reading through it, just let me know. Thank you, I said, meaning it. I drove home and spread everything across my kitchen table. I grabbed a highlighter and a red pen and started going line by line. I circled every transfer to Julia's account, every debit card purchase from stores I never shopped at, every online order I never made. It took hours. But by the time I was done, I had a clear picture. It wasn't just my pension. They'd been slowly draining my savings, too. Small withdrawals over time. $250 here, $400 there. Just enough that I didn't notice. They even rerouted my Social Security payments to the same joint account last year. They weren't helping me manage anything. They were draining me dry. By mid-afternoon, I had a stack of evidence. But evidence wasn't enough. I needed to know what my options were. So I did something I never thought I'd have to do. I called an attorney. I found the number for a local elder law firm online. They specialized in financial exploitation cases. I dialed. Good afternoon, Sanders and Myers Law, the receptionist answered. Yes, I said. I need to speak to someone about financial exploitation. My name is Margaret Dalton, she asked me a few basic questions, then scheduled me for a consultation the next morning at 10 a.m. I hung up the phone, sat back, and took a deep breath. It was happening. I was doing it. I wasn't going to be quiet. I wasn't going to be passive. Not this time. Just as I was organizing the paperwork back into folders, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Mark. We need to talk. Julia and I are coming over at 5. Stared at it for a few seconds, then typed back one word, no. Less than a minute later, the phone started ringing. It was Mark. I let it ring. Then it rang again. Then Julia's name appeared on the screen. I ignored it too. After the third call, a new message popped up. You're acting crazy. If you think you're gonna ruin everything we've built for this family over a misunderstanding, you're wrong. You need to stop this before you do something you'll regret. I read it, then deleted it. At 4:45, they showed up anyway. I watched from the window as their car pulled into my driveway. Julia got out first, slamming the door, already looking furious. Mark followed, looking like he was trying to calm her down. I didn't open the door. They rang the bell, then banged on the door, then rang it again. I stood in the hallway, arms crossed, watching through the peephole. Mom, Mark called. Come on, open the door! Julia's voice cut in, sharp and nasty. You're being ridiculous, Margaret. Open this door now. Now. You live rent-free. You don't pay bills. Because you set it up that way. You told me you were automating payments to help me. I trusted you. Julia smirked. And you should be thanking me. Without me, you wouldn't even know how to check your email. Mark added. We made sure everything was handled. You never had to worry about anything. Because you were handling it straight into your own pockets. Julia threw her hands up. This is ridiculous. You act like we left you on the street. You have your house, you have food, you're not starving. No thanks to you. I shot back. Julia leaned closer, lowering her voice into something sharper, meaner. You need to understand how this works. You're old. You don't need that money sitting around. It's better for the family if we manage it. I stared at her. Better for the family or better for you? She didn't answer. Mark sighed. Like he was the victim. Mom, you're being really selfish about this. Do you think raising kids is cheap? Do you know how much we pay in tuition? In groceries? In car payments? It's overwhelming. Then maybe, I said, my voice ice cold. You shouldn't have had a family you can't afford. Julia's mouth opened in shock, and Mark's face turned red. I didn't work 40 years to raise you, feed you, help you buy your first car, help you with your down payment, and now retire, just to have you both turn around and drain everything I have. Julia rolled her eyes again. Oh, please, it's not like you were going to use it. What do you even do all day? I clenched my fists. I was saving it for medical emergencies. For repairs. For when life happens. Mark stepped in again, his voice trying to sound reasonable but landing flat. Mom, let's just calm down. We can work this out. No need to blow this up. Oh, it's already blown up, Mark, I said. I called the bank. I've started the fraud process. Both of their faces drained of color. You what? Julia stammered. I filed a fraud report. The bank has flagged the account. They're reviewing the signatures, the transfers. It's all under investigation now. Mark's mouth opened, then closed. You didn't have to go that far. You went that far, I said. The moment you signed my name, without my consent. Julia suddenly shifted back into her manipulative tone. Mom, you're confused. This is going to embarrass the whole family. You don't want to do that. People are going to think you've lost it. I blinked. Are you threatening me now? No, but think about how this looks. She pressed. It's going to seem like you're senile, like you can't manage anything. You really want the family talking about you like that? Mark added quietly, She's right. You should just drop this. Let it go. I crossed my arms. No. Julia's face hardened. Fine. But don't say we didn't warn you. Mark looked down, avoiding eye contact. I didn't say another word. I stepped back and closed the door in their faces. I stood there for a few seconds, listening as they muttered something to each other on the porch, then finally walked away. When their car pulled out of the driveway, I locked the door, walked back to the kitchen, and sat down. My hands were still, trembling, not from fear anymore, from rage, from betrayal, from humiliation, and from a fire building in my chest I hadn't felt in years. They thought I was weak. They thought I would roll over. They thought wrong. The next morning, I was at the bank at 8:45, waiting in my car until they unlocked the doors. I sat gripping the steering wheel, staring at the entrance, feeling the mix of nerves and determination tighten in my chest. I had never been the kind of person who enjoyed conflict. I avoided it most of my life, but this wasn't conflict anymore. This was survival. At exactly 9 a.m., I walked in. Stephanie, the branch manager, was already behind the counter. The moment she saw me, she waved me toward her office. She didn't even wait for me to check in. Once we sat down, she closed the door behind us. Mrs. Dalton, she started, I've already escalated your case to our fraud investigations department. I also pulled all the paperwork related to the joint account ending in 2335. She slid a file folder across the desk. Inside were copies of the account opening documents. I looked down at the signature line. The name was mine. But the signature? Not even close. That is not my handwriting, I said immediately. Stephanie nodded. My throat felt dry. This was bigger than I thought. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't family helping family. This was theft. This was betrayal in the deepest sense. And my own son was part of it. I buried my face in my hands. For a few minutes, I didn't move. I just sat there breathing, trying not to let the crushing sadness swallow me whole. But then the sadness started to shift. Something colder replaced it. Something sharper. I pulled my hands away from my face, stood up, and looked at the mess of documents spread across my table. No, I wasn't going to let this happen. Not anymore. I grabbed my phone and made my next call. The first number I called was the local bank branch. I asked for the branch manager directly. Her name was Stephanie. We'd met a few times before, years ago, when Henry and I set up our joint savings. She was polite, but I could hear the tension in her voice the moment I started asking questions. Mrs. Dalton, she said, I do see the joint account ending in 2335 is active. It has your name listed, as well as Julia Dalton's. I never opened that account, I told her firmly. Stephanie paused. Ma'am, the records show that you came into the branch on April 5th, 2022, and authorized the addition. Didn't step foot in your bank that day, I snapped. I was at home. I remember it clearly because that was the day my back gave out, and I didn't leave the house for 3 days. There was another long pause. Mrs. Dalton, Stephanie said, lowering her voice, if you're saying you didn't authorize this, then we have a serious problem. You think? I said sharply. How much money went through that account? She clicked her keyboard. From the time the account was opened until now, total deposits from your pension were $59,520. My stomach turned. And withdrawals, she typed again. Withdrawals total $59,407. So they left me with a grand total of $100, I muttered. Stephanie cleared her throat. Ma'am, I need to be honest with you. If there's been unauthorized access to your accounts, you'll need to file a fraud report. That starts by coming into the branch and completing the affidavits. Then we conduct an internal investigation. And how long does that take? Anywhere from 10 to 30 days, depending on the complexity. I sighed, pinching the bridge of my nose. Stephanie, do me a favor. Look at the signature on the account authorization form from April 5th. Compare it to the signature you have from when Henry and I opened our accounts years ago. There was silence on the line. I waited. Oh, wow, she finally muttered. Yeah, that's Mrs. Dalton? That doesn't look like your signature at all. I know, I said, my voice tightening. Because it's not. She exhaled. I'm flagging this for review immediately. Can you come in tomorrow morning? I'll be there at 9 a.m. We hung up. I set the phone down and stared at it, my hand shaking again. But this time, it wasn't fear. It was rage. I wasn't naive. I knew that fixing this wouldn't be quick, but I also knew I wasn't just going to sit here and do nothing. I had spent my entire life avoiding conflict, believing that if you were kind, if you were fair, the people around you would be too. That was a lie. At 4:30 that afternoon, there was a knock at my door. I opened it, and there they were, Mark and Julia, standing side by side like some warped version of a loving couple. Julia was the first to speak. Mom, we need to talk. I didn't invite them in. I stood right in the doorway, blocking it, with my body. No, we're talking right here. Julia crossed her arms. Look, this has all gotten blown way out of proportion. Mark stepped forward. Yeah, Mom, we're family. This doesn't have to get ugly. It already is ugly, I snapped, because you made it that way. Mom, come on, Mark groaned, rubbing the back of his neck like this was just some inconvenience. We've been helping you. Helping me? I barked. Helping me by draining my pension, maxing out credit cards in my name, and leaving me with barely $1,000 to my name? Julia rolled her eyes. You're not being fair. No, Julia, I said firmly. You're the one who's not being fair. You manipulated me. You sat in my kitchen, smiled in my face, and stole from me. Her tone turned sharp. We didn't steal. We used money that wasn't being used. You have everything you need. Your groceries, taxes, everything was coming from one account. It was supposed to help you. Help me? I felt my throat tightening. Help me by draining every last penny from my pension? You weren't using it, Mom, he said, sharply, like I was the unreasonable one. You sit at home. You don't travel. You don't buy anything. It was just sitting there. It was my money, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. It was mine, Mark. It's not like that, he shot back. We're family. You always say family shares everything. Shares? I repeated, my voice rising despite myself. Mark, I didn't share it. You took it. You transferred it behind my back. Julia said you agreed to the joint account. You sat right there when she filled out the forms. You gave her your password. I slammed my hand on the table. Because she told me it was to set up automatic payments. Not to route my entire pension into your account. There was another pause. Then his tone shifted, more defensive, colder. You're blowing this way out of proportion, Mom. Look, you're living in that house without paying anything. We cover your taxes. We bring you groceries. We drive you to appointments. You've been living off us. I blinked. My mouth actually hung open for a second. Living off you? I repeated slowly. Mark, that money was mine. You've been using my money to pay for those things, not yours. You don't understand how tight things have been. He shot back, like that justified everything. The kids have school. We have mortgage payments. We were drowning. You think it's easy raising a family right now? Prices are insane. Property taxes are up. Groceries are up. We did what we had to do. And what you had to do was rob me. I spat. Don't be dramatic, Mom, he said coldly. It's not robbery. It's family helping family. Helping. Yourselves, you mean. Mom, you should be grateful. Julia does everything for you. She manages your bills, your appointments. She handles your taxes. Without her, you wouldn't even know how to log into your bank account. My hands were shaking now, partly from anger, partly from the sheer disbelief of what I was hearing. And that gives you the right to empty my pension? To take every cent I saved for my retirement? You weren't using it, he repeated, like a broken record. And besides, we've made sure you're fine. You've got food. The utilities are paid. Paid with my money, Mark. Silence. I could hear him breathing on the other end, heavier now. Then, suddenly, his tone turned colder, sharper. Look, Mom, you're not going to guilt-trip me about this. We've done more for you than anyone else in this family. Where were Uncle Pete or Aunt Linda when you needed help? Huh? Nowhere. We've been the only ones who stepped up. You didn't step up, I snapped. You stepped in. You stepped in to take everything. He scoffed. You know what? If you're gonna act like this, maybe you should figure it out on your own from now on. Let's see how long you last trying to handle your own finances. Then he hung up. For a few seconds, I just stared at the phone in disbelief. The weight in my chest was suffocating. My hands wouldn't stop trembling. I set the phone down carefully, stood up, and walked to the sink. I splashed cold water on my face. I needed to breathe. I needed to think. I grabbed a towel, dried my hands, and leaned against the counter. And then it hit me. If they had access to my pension, what else did they have access to? I went straight to the filing cabinet in the back bedroom. I pulled every single folder out: bank accounts, insurance policies, Social Security documents, tax returns. I laid them all on the dining table, one by one, and as I went through them, the pit in my stomach only grew deeper. My checking account had barely $320 in it. My savings account, the one I'd had for emergencies, was down to $1,080. I remembered having over $12,000 in there just 2 years ago. The property taxes on the house, paid, with funds pulled directly from my pension. Grocery bills, pharmacy charges, even Julia's own Amazon orders, all listed under the joint card she'd added to my account. I even found a credit card opened in my name, one I never applied for, with a balance of $7,400. Purchases I didn't recognize. A laptop, a new sectional sofa, children's furniture, clothing from stores I've never shopped at. I sat down heavily in the dining chair, my heart pounding. My palms were sweaty. They hadn't cut me off. They were too smart for that. They left just enough to keep me quiet. Mark always told me not to worry about expenses. Julia and I got it, Mom, he'd say. We're not going to let you worry about money. And I thought, how sweet, how kind. I thought my son was being a good man. And maybe he thought he was. But Julia knew exactly what she was doing, and I let her. At 7 a.m., I called the bank. I asked them to send me a list of all transactions made under my name. They emailed a file. I printed every page, and I saw it there, plain as day. Recurring transfers, the same amount, the same dates. Going to an account I didn't own, I couldn't cry. Not yet. The sadness hadn't even begun to settle. All I could feel was cold. I waited until the afternoon to call them. I didn't want to hear Mark's voice, so I called Julia directly. She answered cheerfully. "Hi, Mom. Everything okay?" I said nothing for a second. Then, "I got a letter from the bank." There was a pause. "What kind of letter?" she asked. Her tone shifted just slightly. "The one that shows you've been stealing from me." She didn't deny it, not right away. Instead, she exhaled sharply and said, "I was going to explain it to you, but I didn't want to stress you out. We've been using the money to help cover things for the family. You know, the kids' school, groceries, stuff we all benefit from." "All of it?" I asked. She sighed. "Mom, you weren't using it. You don't go anywhere. You don't spend. It's better for all of us this way." I felt something inside me snap. "I want it back," I said. There was a laugh, a dry, humorless laugh. "It doesn't work like that," Julia said. "That money's been used. You gave us access." "No," I said quietly. "You took it." She went silent. Then she said, "Mark and I did everything for you. We helped you after Henry died. We cleaned your house, we brought you dinner. Don't act like you were some victim. I trusted you. You still can. This doesn't have to become a thing." But it already had. I hung up. That night, I wrote everything down. Every transfer, every conversation, every lie. I wasn't sure yet what I would do with it. I wasn't ready to go to the police. Not yet. I wasn't ready to confront Mark either. My heart wasn't ready to face the idea that my own son let this happen. Or worse, helped plan it. But I was done pretending. They thought I wouldn't notice, that I was old, tired, slow. Maybe I was. But even tired women can open a letter. Even tired women can read numbers on a page. And even tired women can fight back. The morning after that call with Julia, I woke up with a tightness in my chest that I couldn't shake. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I kept hearing her voice, cold, dismissive, as if everything they had done was perfectly reasonable, as if emptying my pension was just a casual decision, not a betrayal. Sat at the edge of my bed, staring at the floor for a long time before I finally forced myself up. I walked to the kitchen, made coffee, and sat back down at the same table where I'd opened that bank letter less than 24 hours earlier. The papers were still spread out, some of them crumpled from how tightly I'd gripped them last night. My hands trembled as I sifted through them again. The reality hadn't changed. My pension was gone. 2 years of deposits, every cent, siphoned out to an account controlled by Julia. The phone sat on the table. I stared at it for a long time. I knew I couldn't avoid it forever. I had to talk. To Mark. It took me nearly 20 minutes to dial his number. When I finally pressed the call button, my hand was shaking so badly that I almost dropped the phone. He picked up on the third ring. "Hey, Mom," he answered, cheerful like nothing was wrong. "How's everything?" I took a breath. "Mark, we need to talk. Now." There was a pause. His tone shifted immediately. "Is everything okay? You sound off?" "I got a letter. From the bank," I said, my voice flat. "A letter that says my pension account is empty." Silence. "Mark," I pressed. "Explain it to me." There was a long exhale from his side. "Look, okay, Mom. Don't freak out. This isn't what you think. What I think," I cut him off, "is that you and Julia have been stealing from me for almost 2 years. Is that accurate?" "Mom, stop," he snapped. "It's not stealing. We reorganized things. Julia set it up so that everything would be easier. Your bills,